Hoffman. This is your website ready for year-end fundraising? If you, so what Conversion Booster is about, and what I'm going to talk about today is with year-end fundraising, is the idea of the right messages to the right people at the right time. And so my hope is that we're going to introduce this tool to you, but really going to introduce some ways of thinking about your website that will help you in year-end fundraising, whether you choose to use the tool that we're showing you or do other things. You will have some ideas about how you can really engage your site visitors better, especially at this time of year when we're driving a lot more traffic. We're seeing a lot more things happen on our websites. So this is me, and I'll tell you a little bit about C3. If you aren't familiar with C3, we work with nonprofits and social causes. We call ourselves the Digital Agency for Do-Gooders. We focus on consulting, strategy, websites, video. We do a lot of video production here, and we're really focused on impact. We're really focused on how can we help organizations navigate this new world of mobile and tech and all of these different things that are being thrown at you in a strategic way, really focused on how do you engage your constituents effectively towards the real goals, organizational goals that you have, which are not Facebook likes or all of these shiny objects, but really have to do with your mission and are mission driven. We work for organizations, many of whom I'm sure you've heard of, probably many whom you don't know as well, and we help them on all kinds of different projects, either at a high level around strategy and consulting, or also with production, whether it's video, web, mobile, and those kinds of things. And what I'm excited about today is that we're talking about a product, and C3 isn't really a product company. We're very agnostic on tools for the most part, but we've had this problem that we've been thinking about for years, and when we discovered something, a way to address it, we got really excited, and we decided to really throw our head in with this particular tool set because we saw that it was solving a problem that we see all the time. So I want to just start and talk to you about that problem. So what we're talking about today is getting people to act when they're on your website. And I think these are some of the typical actions that we see, whether it's opt-ins to email lists or signing a petition, but certainly making donations. And certainly at year end, donations are really key, though email is still the #1 reason people come back to organizational websites. So we can't forget about email opt-ins as a really critical piece, but then converting those emails into donors, into activists, into the things we want. So I would have a poll at this point, but our poll functionality seems to not be working, just to ask you about the actions that you're most interested in. But if it's like any of the previous webinars that I've been on, or in the conversations we've had with our clients and others, certainly donations is really at the top of the list. And
Michael, I want to add, if they have any specific concerns that they want to add in the questions feature, I will be looking at the questions and the chat, but mostly the questions. So they're welcome. If there's an action that is jumping off this list to them and they're really looking for advice around that, ask us a question and I will share it with Michael later in the webinar.
That's great, Bridget. Thank you. So please, if anything comes up, any thoughts, questions, please just put it in the questions tab there in your little go-to webinar control panel thing, and Bridget will be watching that, and I'm happy to be interrupted to address those things as well. So in terms of this, we don't build organizational websites for our health, right? It's not like people say, oh, that site is beautiful, and that's good enough, right? It's not good enough. But the whole point of these things is to get people to do things in the world, to be our constituents, to be active constituents, for us to be able to engage them, to see, and we measure that through these kinds of numbers. How many people sign the petition? How many people are making donation? How many new people are making donations versus people who've made donations before, right? We parse all of those numbers, but those numbers really at their core are about engaging our constituents so that we can be more effective, as organizations. And that's what the website's about. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. We look at our own websites so much, we get bored with them, and we don't necessarily think about the paths that users take and put ourselves in the shoes of those site visitors so that we can really understand, well, what are they really looking for? What are they really thinking about? And if you've done a website redesign project in the last couple of years, hopefully you've gone through a sort of pre-building project around who our audience is and what do they want to do and what do they need and how do we organize our information in a user-centric way. So at C3 we're really focused on the idea of user-centric design, or constituent-centric design, which is the idea that our categories of work don't really matter so much. What matters is how the constituents think about things, and so we have to address them more than playing our kind of inside baseball as an organization. So we see this in email. So email is smart because email allows us to segment our lists and push out messages to the right people at the right times, and we can be very aggressive with email. And at year end, and I think this is something that's been an eye-opener for me in looking at data, there are folks who will argue that the whole idea of year-end giving season is a bit of a myth in the sense that it isn't that people are willing to give more at year-end, it's that we ask people more at year-end, right? So if you look at just the volume of messaging, the volume of emails, the volume that we send out and say it's time to give, it's Giving Tuesday, we want you to give, it's Thanksgiving, we want you to give, it's Christmas, we want you to give, it's year-end, and there's a tax deadline, we want you to give. It's not that it's some kind of natural giving season necessarily, but we're actually just asking a lot more. And so this is going to be the theme of this webinar today, because when we ask, we get, right? And one of the things also in terms of email, your list is incredibly tolerant of a large number of messages, right? And that's something we learn every year end. And you learn, and I'm sure all of you have signed up to the lists of other organizations in addition to your own, and you see the incredible volume of email at the end, and we're very forgiving of that. I think there's a lot of worry inside organizations about asking too much or asking too aggressively, but there's not a lot of data that says that that's actually bad. There's a much more data that says the more you ask, the more you get. So email is smart, and we have these tools. We have tools like Illuminate Online and Engaging Networks and Salsa and all these great tools which are really focused on email, are focused on being able to segment lists, being able to put different content for different people, being able to time things well, being able to measure whether people actually looked at it and what they did, right? So email is great, is smart. But then we get to your websites, and websites are dumb. Websites are nothing like your emails because websites essentially treat everybody the same. And so, we're in this situation where we have these tools, these great tools that do a lot with your list and segmenting your list and email. And then you have your website, which may look terrific, but is a kind of blunt instrument. It's dumb. It treats everybody who shows up on that site the same way. And what we're seeing is in the commercial world, we're seeing websites become smarter. And that's really what this is about. That's what our tool's about, and that's what I want you to think about for year end, whether you're going to use our tool or not, is how do you make your websites more like your email, smarter, focused on individuals and not just treating everybody the same way. So what does that mean? So as I said, email allows for this high degree of personalization, but websites don't. And we see that sometimes with things like pop-ups, which I'm going to talk a lot about because they work, but they can often be too blunt of an instrument. The dumb pop-ups that treat, again, everybody the same way, and really, how do you treat different visitors differently on your site without it being cost prohibitive? And so we see this in very sophisticated technology that generally falls under the banner of marketing automation. That's generally the banner that if you're looking for software under, you would look for something called marketing automation software. And there are these suites, these really deep suites that include the CRM, the tools, the email tools with the CMS, the website tools, the content management systems, and it bundles all of those things together. And but those things, what we've found is in the nonprofit world, pretty much non-existent. I mean, there's maybe a few outlier organizations that are running those systems, but those are systems that manage these kinds of things. And here's the thing, though, is that your site visitors are used to being treated in this way, and that's because when you go to Google, there's no such thing as a homepage anymore for a Google search, right? The Google search is unique to the person who's searching. It's unique to their location. If I search for dolphins, and Google knows that I have a search history related to the NFL, I'm going to get the football team and not the mammal, in the ocean, right? And vice versa, depending on what they know about me. So there's no standardized results anymore. The same is true on a site like Amazon.com, where we're searching for things and it's showing us results based on what they know about us, based on the behavior, what they know about us coming in, but also based on our behavior on the site at the time. We looked at this product, and this product, and an algorithm would say, oh, well, if somebody looked at those 3 types of products, they're going to be really interested in this 4th thing, and we're going to show them that to them, right? And that kind of sophisticated technology is something that just is like in a whole different world from our nonprofits and their websites. And so what I'm going to show you is our tool that is like a slice of this marketing automation to make websites smarter. But you'll also see some basic things I think that you'll be able to do with or without a tool in terms of being able to be more focused about, what are we telling our constituents and when. So I'll tell you a little about this thing. Our tool is called Conversion Booster, and the whole idea behind Conversion Booster is to make websites smarter so that people will actually take more actions. And we're very focused on action. It's great if somebody comes to your website and reads something. It's great if they come back and read something else. But really, we want their email address. Really, we want them to become donors. Really, we want them to upgrade. There's things we want them to do. They're not going to do it unless we ask them to do it. And for the most part, the asks on websites are very passive, right? You have this section on the website that says, support us or donate now is a button. But those are things that just sit in the background. They're not being delivered in front of people based on their behavior. And so the more we can do that, the more likely we are to achieve results. And this tool, so we found a best-of-breed tool in the for-profit sector that we've layered on top of it some nonprofit experience and smarts. And we're seeing this tool increase conversions dramatically on websites. And so that's really exciting to us. And as I said, this is totally different for us, a departure for us, because we have been a technology agnostic company, but we're really seeing something that's affordable that could make websites smarter, and that's something we just keep coming back over and over again for us. So one of the things when you think about conversions on your website is putting yourself in the shoes of that constituent who's coming to the site. Why are they there? Are they just looking for inspiration? Are they there because somebody shared something with them? Are they there because you sent them an email and there was something really engaging that you wrote about? Are they coming to donate? Is that their purpose in coming there? And how do we know, right? That's the challenge. How do we know? And so, we see things like Google Analytics, and Google Analytics is terrific for trying to analyze anonymously and in aggregate in the past what people did on your website, right? But it's not doing it in real time. It's not telling you what somebody's actually doing on your site right now, and it's not then changing what they see based on their actions. And so, if you've ever taken a lesson in Google Analytics and using Google Analytics, you will have learned that raw numbers are great for sort of ego metrics, right? Like how many visitors did we get? But the things that are really interesting and really will allow you to be actionable, actionable data, are things like user paths. And so that's why I have this picture here. Really think about the paths people take. What pages do people come in on the website? And what pages do they go out on? And what pages do they see in between? And when we look at people who ended up on our donation page, did they go right to that donation page, or did they start somewhere else and that led them to the donation page, right? So this is the first thing I want you to do after this webinar that would be really useful, is to go back to your analytics and really ask the questions, or ask the questions of the people who run your analytics, if it's not you, is tell me about user paths and entry and exit pages, and what do we know about the way people navigate our site? Because if you know, for example, that you only get a small percentage of people coming to your site making donations on the site, and then you learn that a large percentage of those people actually flow through one or two pages on your site, then there's something about those pages which are getting people excited about the possibility of donating. And then you can ask yourself, well, how many people landed on those pages and how many actually donated? How do we change that ratio so more people who land on those pages end up donating, right? And the reason that we're so into this, that this is so important, is we're spending, as organizations across the board, we're spending massive amounts of money on acquisition, donor acquisition, acquisition of new names. We're trying to fill the top of the funnel with new people all the time, and we allow all of the people that we've connected to in the past just to filter away and disappear. And if we spent a fraction of the energy and the effort and the dollars on retaining, capturing, and increasing the conversions of the people we've already connected to, that we've already gotten to go to our websites, we will be so much stronger and so much better off. And for us, that really starts with this idea of paths, of what paths do people take, and how do we then try to short circuit their path to the donation page, right? How do we try to put that on steroids? How do we try to make that more aggressive so that they're going to get there not on their own, but we're actually going to lead them by the hand to that thing we want them to do. So when we think about first steps around conversion booster and around how do you up conversions, it is identifying what those goals are. So how important is it to you to get email subscriptions, for example? Email we think is really important. So often it's easier to get an email opt-in and then work on that person over time than it is necessarily to get them to immediately donate. But you want to do both of those things. But how important is that to you? And I think one of the things that we like to figure out is can you put a monetary value on that? So that's something interesting that you should be thinking about in your metrics, is do you know what an email subscriber is worth to you? And one of the reasons to do that is because when you analyze something like Conversion Booster tool or any other tool or any other effort in terms of time, you can say, well, this is what an email is worth to us. And if we can increase the number of emails that we capture by this percent or by this number, here's the value of that. Here's the real tangible organizational value to that. And we want to know what that is. And then as I talked about the paths and the roadblocks for visitors to get there. So if email subscription is one of those things, where are they being asked to subscribe and in what way? And so, one of the things that just thinking this way often reveals, and there's a lot of aha moments when we walk organizations through this, that they look at their site and they're like, wow, we're not really asking very much about email subscribing. We have that little thing in the corner, and it doesn't really say why you should subscribe, and it's too small, and on and on, and wow, that's not really going to work very well. And so people start to see their site in a new way when they put themselves in the shoes of those constituents who are coming. So the other thing is thinking about segments. We really want to think, in an ideal world, we can treat every single person as an individual, but that's not realistic at our level. We're not Google, right, in terms of the organizations and the resources and the technology. So we really have to think about segments, just like what you do with email, there's a segment of people who came in through this petition, and the petition was about, water. So we know these people have some interest in water because they signed the water petition, even though our organization does 100 other things, right? But it's important to keep those segments together. It's important to keep those segments together because that tells us something about those people, which we can use later. And one of the most important findings in so many different research studies around donors, around email opens, around all these things is that the more you, call it dance with the one that brought you, the more you're focused on what it is that attracted that person in the first place, the more likely you are to get them to convert to something. Meaning, if somebody signed the petition about water and you start talking to them about climate change or some other thing, they're a lot less likely to act than if you talk to them about the thing that they're interested in. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work over time to broaden their interest, but you're going to have better luck on these clear conversion asks, on things like donation asks, if you focus on the thing that you know about people, and that's segmentation. So we think about segmentation very easily in email, but let's start thinking about segmentation a bit on our website based on what people do on the site. So what does that mean? So I think of it, the example, this is Land's End. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, and I've talked to several people who had very similar experiences. But have you ever had the experience of being on the phone with a company like Land's End while you're browsing? They love you to do this, and they actually encourage it. And it's such a great experience because you're on the phone with somebody, and they're saying, and I'm saying, I'm really interested in these coats, but where do I find the one, I need this type. I need your warmest coat. That's what I say because I'm in Chicago all the time. And they say, okay, here, click on this link and go to this thing, and you see those three. Let's talk about that, right? So it's like they're with you along the way, and that's in a way an ideal to imagine for your constituents browsing your website, right? It's an ideal to think about what would it be like if we could be listening in and watching as somebody browses our site and whispering in their ear a bit about, hey, take a look at that. Hey, click over here. Hey, do this, right? Like that's the ideal thing, and that's really what we want to do. We want to see what people are doing on the site, and then we want to guide them to the things we want them to do. And that's really how you have to think about those paths. Is unlike being on the phone, you have to make some assumptions that if people are on this page for a certain amount of time, if they're watching this video, if they're doing these things on the site, then they're kind of ripe for certain calls to action. Those calls to action should be placed in front of them at those moments. So let's define those moments and then place those calls to action, right at those moments. So the big takeaway I just want to give you, and totally related or unrelated to our tool set is the idea that you have to ask to get. It's so basic, right? And the more you ask at the right time and the right person, the right thing, the more you're going to get. And so I think we're very timid. At year end, we're not timid about the emails, right? We're sending lots and lots of emails. We're asking a lot. But on our websites, we're generally timid. And then maybe once a year we have this extremely blunt instrument of the splash page on the home page that treats every single visitor exactly the same way, even if they donated 5 minutes ago, right? Or whatever. And so it's either sort of one or the other. And I think what we see is effectiveness comes when you can treat people as much in their segments as close to individuals as possible. So I want to give some examples of how this would work. And these are examples, these are mock-ups that we did with ideas that we have. And I want to tell you some sort of use cases about what this would mean in practice. And all of these are things that the Conversion Booster tool can do. And I'll explain to you how the Conversion Booster tool works. But when I talk about the right people, the right time, the right ask, this is what I'm talking about. And some of these things you could probably do on your own, maybe if you have a tech team that can do it. But these are all things that are sort of built into the Conversion Booster tool to make it easy for you to do it. So I was thinking about this today because I'm in Chicago and our public radio station WBEZ is having their pledge drive. The pledge drive started this morning, and I can't stand the pledge drive like most people. And they did the smartest thing a couple of years ago, which was they allowed people who are monthly givers to skip the pledge drive and get a link to a pledge-free stream. And it's been, amazing. Now, how do they do that? They know that I'm a monthly giver because I can log in and be a monthly giver, and there's certain content on the site that I can access only if I am a monthly giver. So they can know I'm a monthly giver. And one of the things that I was thinking about is they don't really ask me for an extra donation, and they have opportunities to do that. And so an example of that would be that you have a monthly donor on your website, but you're in the midst of your year-end fundraising, or you're in the midst of Giving Tuesday, or some other thing happening, and you and you want to be respectful of that monthly donor, right? You don't want to treat them as if they've never donated. You want to appreciate the fact that they've donated, but you could also ask them for an upgrade or a one-time gift. So if it's Giving Tuesday, you could say to your monthly donors, we really appreciate that you're a monthly donor, but we have this Giving Tuesday goal, and could you pitch in, another $15 to get there, for example. And so those are things that, again, could be extremely effective if you can pull it off. And so here's an example, that I was thinking about because of the public radio thing, is the idea of, would you do another gift? So another example would be donor abandonment. So this is a big one, where, I would say in the world of low-hanging fruit for donations, people who go to a donation page, start doing something on that page or sit on that page for a couple seconds, which in internet time is a long time, and then start moving their mouse up to that X or that red dot on the window there to close that window out. Well, what do you know about those people in that moment, right? You know that there was some interest in donating at some level because they clicked on your donation link. But you also know that within a second or two, they're probably going to disappear. And so you have an opportunity to send them a message that would be unique to them. So for example, complete your donation and your support will be doubled. So that's an idea where you can take one of those matching gifts or things and you can hold it in reserve and only show it to the people, and we know that those work, we know matching giving works, and you could show it to people with donor abandonment. Now, how do we know people are abandoning the page? We know because the web tools today allow you to watch the actions and the activities of people on your site in real time and to respond to it, and that's what Conversion Booster does. It's watching what's the behavior of somebody on the site. It doesn't necessarily know who they are if they're not already on your list and you didn't bring them with a special link that would know who they are, but it knows their behavior, and behavior is the most important predictor of whether someone will take an action or not. Another example is this idea of customized content, and you've seen this, probably if you read the New York Times site or Washington Post, you finish an article and it's like, people who like this article might want to read this thing, right? Or go to the next article. They're really trying to keep you engaged, and that's something that nonprofits don't do enough, and that's something that's built also into this tool. So the idea that I signed up for the water campaign, the example I gave you before, and it's going to show me a donation ask that relates to that specific thing, water. But if I signed up for the climate change list or petition or whatever it was, or I then get the climate change version of the same ask, those are going to have wildly different conversion ratios and rates. You're going to see much more people actually press that donate button if the content there relates to the thing that you know they're interested in. That's a fact, and that's a fact because it's been shown by every organization that's tested that basic concept in many different ways, right? Sending somebody an email that relates to the thing that they opted in on originally is going to yield better results than on something that they don't know is related. So referencing that. And so with Conversion Booster here, you can do it two ways. One is the visitor can be a known visitor, but also you could do it just based on their behavior on the site. So let's say they're an anonymous visitor, but they spent time on the page about water, and they watched a video about water. So then you know something about them, and you can make sure that the ask that you have is one that's relevant. And relevancy is really a key word when we talk about website conversions. This is an example that's not a mock-up, that's actually live on the Common Cause website now, and it is, email signups are really key. So being able to do elegant ways to ask the right people at the right time about email, and sometimes you need some experimentation to figure out who the right people are and when is the right time. So for example, do I want to say sign up the second somebody lands on our homepage? Well, maybe not. They don't know enough yet. They might be a first-time visitor. They don't know anything. They haven't seen anything. Why would they sign up? For what reason? On the other hand, they might have been somebody who spent a certain amount of time on our issues page and are really reading something in depth, because we can tell, because they've been on this page for a certain number of seconds. It's the third page they landed on in their session. And so we know this person is much more likely to be interested in signing up than somebody who's on a different path at a different stage, and then we can make this offer to them. Another thing that we like to do, that we all want to do, is create more social engagement, and that's also something that you can do in Conversion Booster, you could do on your site. And so an example is Eli Talks is a site that has, it's like a TED Talks in the Jewish community, and so it's really about video watching, and one of the things they want to do is increase the number of subscribers to their YouTube channel. And so this is a call to action that actually integrates that YouTube widget. So if I'm logged in to my Google account, I don't actually have to even leave this pop-up to just click on that YouTube thing, and I will become a subscriber without actually having to go to YouTube to do it, right? It's happening right in this page. And another example of that is using Conversion Booster for Twitter engagement as well. So here's an example where a part of the page content is actually your latest tweet. So that can change, that content's dynamic outside of your content management system, and it allows the site visitor to actually like or star or retweet that right from that page. So they don't actually have to leave your page to retweet your tweet there. And so that can increase, you think about if you can get more of your site visitors to engage on your social accounts, how that would amplify your messaging. So here's a close-up of that, of a widget that has a tweet in it that's related to Rainforest Alliance, and you can retweet or star that right from that page. Another example would be something like Facebook. This is a little blurry here, but the idea that you could like the organizational page right from your site and not have to take somebody to Facebook, right? You know that, right? Facebook has those things. But the idea of being able to do it in a pop-up, in a slide, in something without having to hard code anything on your site, and do it based on where somebody is in their activity, then you're much more likely to have results. Another thing that we've been thinking about also is about first-time visitors. Through cookies, Conversion Booster can tell, if somebody's a return visitor or not. The day that you install something like this, they don't know, it takes, immediately everybody looks like a new visitor because everybody's new to the system. But over time, then you can see who's new and who's return visitor, and you see that in your Google Analytics. The problem is in Google Analytics, what are you seeing? You're seeing the past. You're seeing what happened last month. But what is actionable about that, really, right? Now, if you know that 75% of the people who land on your homepage are new visitors, you should probably have some really good new visitor content on your homepage. So that's how Google Analytics is useful. But if I know that somebody's a new visitor in real time, I could actually deliver content to that person in real time. So, for example, if you have a great overview video, this is an example where you could deliver that great overview video to people that you know are new visitors, if that's the content you think will get them more engaged. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's what you can test, what you can figure out. Again, thinking like email, thinking about paths to take people on, thinking about segments people are in, thinking about where do you want to take them, where do you want to lead them by the hand. Okay, I know they're a first-time visitor. I don't think they're going to actually do anything yet. They're not going to opt in. They're not going to donate until they get a sense of why this organization is really important. Let's show that to them. Then we know we showed it to them. The next time they come to the site, we know they already watched that video. We're going to have a different path for them. Or they finish watching the video and they start to do other things on the site. We can then deliver other messages to them because they're on a path that we're leading them on. Location targeting is a big one. So, for example, if the Foundation for Jewish Camp wants to promote Jewish camps in different parts of the country, they know I'm in Chicago, I come to the website, they can have something that says explore camps in the Midwest that shows up because they know where I am. That's something that comes with a site visitor through the IP address. That's something you see again in your Google Analytics. So which is all about what happened in the past. So the question is, if you see that in real time, what can you do with that information in real time, that's effective. So I'll tell you a little bit more about, now that you have a sense of not only of what Conversion Booster can do, but really how you should be thinking about making your website smarter. I will tell you a little bit about how this works and what it is. So Conversion Booster is both technology and consulting, and as I said, there's a commercial product that we found that is super powerful, and that we really were able to find a way to bring that commercial product to the nonprofit sector with the intelligence of our 10 years of experience in increasing website conversions and working with nonprofits. And so really thinking about the top 5 actions we'd want people to take, think about those paths and be able to implement that. And so what Conversion Booster does is it's an overlay basically onto your site. And when I say overlay, think very similar to how Google Analytics works. You put some code on your website pages, and Google Analytics watches what people does on the website. This is exactly the same idea, where you put some code on your website that's invisible to site visitors, but that code allows you to do things that are a layer on top of your site. So one of the things we can do is know whether these are people coming to your site that you know of already or that you don't know. We know if they're on mobile or desktop, so you could show different things to people on mobile or desktop. That's becoming increasingly important. I showed you geographic targeting. You could say if people clicked from these sites, if somebody clicked, for example, on our Google AdWords, right? We have a Google grant, for example. You might have a Google grant, and you're driving traffic to your website from the Google grant. You could show very specific messages to those people based on what they had clicked on that Google grant. That's really powerful because they're much more likely to convert than if you just land them on some generic page. Timing is key. How long do people stay on your site? So if you have a bounce rate that you're unhappy with, this is also something that can help with that, which is making the site more engaging by delivering the right things to the right people at the right time. And then, of course, you can turn things off. So if somebody already saw this, they don't see it again. If they saw this one, then they see this one. Those kinds of things, you can do it. And as you saw in the examples, some of these calls to action can be things that pop up. Some can be slide in. Some can be on the page. It really can look any way you want it to look. It's really not about the look so much as it is about the right ask to the right people at the right time. So, again, I think the thing for me that's been super frustrating over the course of my career in working with nonprofits is the fact that there's so much spent on the top of the funnel on bringing new visitors, on paying for emails, on all of this acquisition growth, and there's so many people leaving, so many people not renewing, so many people who could be upgraded, so many people who could turn into monthly donors, that we're letting them out the door. And so the amount of effort and dollars we could spend to increase that is so small compared to what we spend on that front end, on that acquisition, on, oh, we need more people to know us. Well, if the people that know you act more significantly, then yes, you still need to always fill the top of the funnel at some level, but a few percentage points increase in your renewals, in your upgrades, in those things that people who are already finding you could do, have a much more powerful impact on your bottom line than filling the top of the funnel only to see most of them not convert. So I hope that made sense to you. So and again, our focus is on impact, and so when we look at where the leverage is toward impact, we really see it here, where if you already have somebody on your website, there's a lot more leverage in getting those people to act than in trying to find more people to come to your website. So as I was just saying, things like Google Grants, many organizations are getting $10,000 a month in free promotion through Google Grants that are driving people to their websites. $10,000 a month, that's a lot of money to be spending if you can maximize that spend. Again, if you can convert even a small percentage of those people, the value of that just goes way up. And not to mention things like Care2 and Change.org, which are super effective. If I can guarantee, if I'm paying $2 or $2.50 a name, and I get an email address, and I know that person's interested because they signed a petition. But the really important thing is that when they show up on our website, that we reference that petition, that we're able to convert them to do another action to get them in. That's key to make that name really valuable. And so the numbers there change dramatically if we're able to convert more of those people. So again, I think if you have a spreadsheet that looks at the conversion rates on those different kinds of programs, play with that conversion percentage a little bit and just see how just a few percentage points of increased conversion changes the return on investment from those efforts dramatically. So one of the challenges here, and this is another reason we're so excited about Conversion Booster, is that this is just hard to do for nonprofits. So if your site is on Drupal or WordPress, or you're on some other content management system and you have either an outside vendor or you have an in-house team that manages that site, and you go to them and you say, I want this content to slide in when people are on this page for this amount of time, and and they've gone to these 3 different pages, and here's what I want that to say, and then next week I'm going to change it to something else, right? Your team is just going to laugh at you probably and say, no, we're not doing that. We don't have the capabilities to do that. We don't have the technology to do it. And maybe we do, but we don't have the time because there's 50 other tasks, website maintenance things that have to happen that, this is not going to happen. If you want to add a dumb pop-up to the front of thing for every visitor, we can do that, but that's where it ends. So I think that's a big challenge, and that's why we were excited about this idea of an overlay of something that's actually being managed like Google Analytics outside of your CMS, so that you don't have to bother the IT people, right? Once it's set up, you as the fundraiser, as the marketer, as the person worrying about this can actually make these changes, can do these things without needing those IT people to get involved. And so, that's the happy baby version of this. So, again, just to wrap up a little bit about this, as I said, it is a type of marketing automation that is accessible to nonprofits, which, again, we got super excited about because we see these really sophisticated tools that are just going to be out of reach for the next, 5 to 10 years for nonprofits. An easy overlay works with any CRM, works with any CMS system, And it's really the best in class in the commercial space. So we're seeing just incredible numbers in the commercial space of how this system is being used in terms of what it's doing for conversions. And it can talk to your donor database. It can talk to your Luminate database, your Salsa database, your whatever it is you use. It can push or pull data to that database, meaning somebody could fill something out in one of our calls to action, and that'll write to their record here. Or there's things you know about someone, and that can change what calls to action they see.
And Michael, I just got a question from Sarah that I think you'll be able to speak to. So she
Sure.
says, my organization has active clients and members who we never want to solicit, but who may browse our website before joining. Any advice on how we can distinguish between members or potential members and who is browsing our website versus donors or potential donors? So is there any way to exclude people who you don't want to solicit?
I mean, that's the great thing about this tool is that you can absolutely do that. So the way to do that, the way that this would work would be that you know who your members are and you email those members. And those members have links in their emails to come back and look at different things on the website. The first time somebody does that from an email, that person basically gets tagged as a member. And that's in the database. And then the conversion booster system would say, don't show them any of these calls to action if they have that tag. So it could say that, or it could say only show them the member-related calls to action if they have that tag. Then you may make an assumption about anonymous visitors. You may say, well, we don't want to solicit anonymous visitors because a certain percentage of them may be members that we don't want to solicit. But you may say, if you're an anonymous visitor and you go to these web pages, maybe we're able, with a higher degree of certainty, to say you probably are a member because you logged into a member center, because you went to member pages. So you're going to get that tag that says you're probably a member, and that's going to influence which calls to action you see, not only in that session, but every time you come back to the website. And the same thing with donors. If somebody has behavior that's likely to indicate that they're donors, either because they responded to something that you sent or because of the pages and their browsing habits fall on your site, you could then show them calls to action for donors. So that's really, the exciting part about a technology that can talk to your database, but also watch what people do on the site. So the key is really trying to define, is there a way to tell with enough certainty? It doesn't have to be certainty, right? But with enough likelihood that a person who does these things, looks at these pages, is probably interested in this thing. You could also have something that pops up and says, are you a member? So you could actually ask them a question that puts them in a category, and that question can then be the thing that sets the tag on who they are. So for example, you could say a survey for members only, and you could have a little survey in one of these calls to action with 2 questions. But it says for members only, and so if somebody fills it out, then you tag them as a member. So there's a lot of strategies where you could get people to identify themselves either through their anonymous behavior, through what you already know about them, or through directly asking them in different ways. Okay, so if we have other questions, Bridget, please feel free, or if that didn't answer the question, I'm happy to follow up.
That is the only one we have for now, although I encourage anyone else who's still on here, if you have specific questions about end of year fundraising and how you can apply some of these concepts, even without this tool. I think we really just want to help any of the nonprofits who are here make an impact. And Sarah says that did answer her question. Thank you. So well done, Michael.
Great. So just a question, is Conversion Boost right for you? And I think we're not, as I said, we're like new to this idea of having a product. And as Bridget just said, we're really interested in helping everybody. So even if the tool's not right for you, there may be things that C3 can help you with, whether it's related to strategy or to video or to web design and development or to mobile. Those are all things we do. So this is one thing we do that we're just, as you can probably tell, I'm really excited about. But who's it really for? I think one thing I forgot to mention was A/B testing. So this has built-in A/B testing capabilities, so you could actually show 2 different calls to action to people on a randomized basis and see what works. If you're thinking about redoing your website in the next year, this is a no-brainer here, because what this will do is let you test a set of messages and calls to action over time as you're starting to think about your new site, which will influence what you actually end up putting on your new site, which is another thing we're just really excited about. But so one of the things is that if you have very low traffic, and so I would say very low traffic would be less than 5,000 visitors a month, and if you have an email database with less than 10,000 emails in it total, this might not be for you. And I say that because you need a certain amount of activity to see the results, right? So there's a certain minimum cost to dealing with this, to thinking about it, and in order to have enough traffic to make a difference, if you don't have any web traffic, if you have very low web traffic, then, for example, you're never going to have large numbers of new email subscribers necessarily. And this is where we really think a cutoff is. So if you have more than 5,000 web visitors a month, and if you have a database that has more than 10,000 emails, this will probably work really well for you. If you're below that, then then I think focusing on, are there some quick things you can do on your website that you can do once, that will move in this direction. We'll think more about who's coming and addressing them more specifically, and how do you do that? So one of the things with Conversion Booster that we're excited about is that it's a consultative product, in that the technology is wonderful, but really it's about figuring out with you, working with you in a really detailed way, what are those paths, what are those actions, what are the things you want people to do, and being able to give you the reporting and the analysis, do the testing, develop the strategy. So really all of that being bundled in here for you to increase your conversion rates. So what we've done is, the way we've designed this is that we think we need 3 months to set this up and work with you really closely to find out those paths and set it up, and then to have it as, after the 3 months, as a just monthly thing, cancel at any time. And so right now the monthly cost is set at $3.99 a month. And again, we've done some math. So we've looked at the value of emails across organizations. We've looked at the upgrade of donors. And so we picked a number partly based on our cost, but partly based on, mostly based on, what's a number where we know we'll blow it out of the water in terms of the value. And so that's what we did here. We know that if you have the right amount of traffic, we can create a substantially greater value than the dollar amount. So this is really an investment that will pay significantly if you have enough traffic in those email opt-ins, in those increased donations. And that's why I said to you, think about what's the value of those actions. So the donations are easy, right? You know what the value of the donation is. You do and you don't, right? The value of a donation, if it's a first-time donor, it's really the lifetime value of that donation that you should be thinking about. And then when you look at something like an email opt-in, again, how many of your emails then convert to donors? How do you figure out what the value of that is? But if you figure that out, then it's very easy to back in to what it would make sense to spend and what your goals would be. You'd say, oh, well, we need another 100 emails a month. We need another 1,000 emails a month. We're gonna, then this thing is paying for itself many times over. We need we need 10 new donors. We need whatever it is. But figuring that out, we can help you do that. Figuring out what that math is, because then we have real tangible goals, right? Then is this worth it or not? And our goal, it's all about impact. So I want to just introduce Sarah Duquoin is the person here who's been working really closely with this, and Sarah is available for follow-up conversations. If you want to look at your traffic, your numbers, your stuff, if you want to get a more in-depth demo of this, Sarah's the one to talk to about it. There's my information. If you have any questions, there's my Twitter handle. You want to talk to me, I'm really happy to talk to you about any of this stuff, but also about any of the other things that we do, any ideas you have, thoughts you have, happy to talk about it. Sarah, would you just introduce yourself and say hello?
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your time, and this is always helpful just to kind of reaffirm the direction C3 takes in helping do-gooders do gooder. And I'm Sarah. I've been working with Conversion Booster for some time now. I can talk through points of measurements or lifts and would be interested in learning more about the organization and how we can help you. So for the people that joined us today, I want to extend my appreciation for your time. And as Michael mentioned, our contact information is on this screen, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. And I'll also be following up with some phone calls to see where there may be interests or other resources that you could use from us.
Terrific. Thank you, Sarah. So, as I said, I hope that you found this useful. I mean, just in the way of thinking, really. Look at your website with new eyes, with fresh eyes, thinking about the paths that people take, and do you understand those paths? Look at your Google Analytics, think about that, and think, are you putting the right information in front of those people? If everybody goes through this page to get to the donation page, then maybe you should have a donation ask on that page, right? Like, think about it in the way that a user experiences it, that a site visitor, that a constituent experiences it, and you'll have a much better opportunity, particularly at year end, when you're really focused on this, when it's really critical, in order to have success. So I think we're just about at the end of our time. Bridget, if we have other questions, we can.
We are good. I don't see any more questions on here.
Okay, terrific. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time. We wish you absolutely the best of luck in your year end and always. And please feel free to reach out to us to talk about this or anything else. And I'll leave this up for a couple minutes, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Bridget, for facilitating. Great job.